trust that you're on leave. Call your friends and family. Hold the mail and change the message on your voicemail.
G'day, I'm ERK and welcome to episode 9 of ERK FM Extra, where we go backstage behind the scenes and find out what makes these musicians tick. Now, I have a delightful lady on the line. We've actually gone back quite some time, but this is the first time that we've spoken via the magics of Skype. Hello, Natalie Brown.
Hello, sir. How are you? This morning for you, this evening for me.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now, we should tell people how we actually found each other, because you're not new to me.
No, I'm not. I'm not new to you at all.
It was way back in 2009 when I found you. I was doing something which long-time ERK FM listeners might remember, the ERK FM United Nations musical tour.
Yes.
And what I was trying to do was focus on a particular country from a particular music supplier and sort of make it sound not like a podcast, but like a concert. Mm-hmm. And Natalie very graciously gave me permission to use one of her songs, which is very appropriate for that particular tour, Around the World.
Yes.
And I still have that song in my head like 3 years later.
Well, that's good.
That is and that's how we met, and we've been
exactly.
Chatting via the social networks ever since.
Yep.
So, Natalie, tell us, how did you get into music in the first place?
Well, I grew up obviously loving music. I actually sort of got my start in theater when I was very young. I was involved in community theater from about the age of 5, so very, very young, and sung in choirs and stuff like that during elementary school and high school. And during high school was when I sort of decided I'd like to do this as a profession. I actually started off doing gospel music back when I was a teenager. I used to work in youth ministry, so I'd work with youth, and I also worked within my church and traveled around my home province of British Columbia when I lived there, and actually did gospel music for quite a number of years. I ended up coming to the United States in the mid-90s and began working with some high-profile gospel artists down there. And during I did a tour. I was singing backup for a pretty well-known singer named Ron Canoli back then. And it was just, I had been sort of introduced to other people through Seth Riggs, Dave Stroud, Dave Stroud is a speech-level singing instructor down in California, Northern California. He was working with a guy in LA named Seth Riggs who worked with like Michael Jackson and a bunch of people, really famous people, and they kind of got wind of what I did, and through that I sort of started to dabble in doing what we called secular music in the Christian music world, which is just like mainstream radio music. So basically I just began to work in that area. I got signed to a development deal when I was young. It had relation tied to Michael Jackson's label MJJ Music. That didn't work out. Then I signed a deal with an independent label in San Francisco. They went bankrupt, but the good news is that through that I met my production partner who I work with to this day, Jeremy Riccara. We actually got together, formed our own label, because I realized after all the drama I had been through with other people's companies and agendas that the best thing for me to do, especially because the MP3 was like a brand new technology. This was like the mid-90s to late 90s, and everything was sort of beginning with the whole mp3.com, online music, being able to actually take the recorded content and put it online instead of having to go through radio. The whole gatekeeper thing was being shut down, so I took advantage of all those things. We formed our own label, started my own publishing company, and sort of just went from there and have been releasing via the companies that we formed since that time. So my first album came out in 2000. My first proper album actually came out, finally saw the light of day in 2000, which was amazing. And then just since then, we've continued in that trajectory, but always being independent and, basically using any technology or innovation to promote and produce music.
Would all of this have happened if you had have stayed in Canada?
Gosh, hard to say. I don't know. I don't think so. The only reason I don't think so is because I was in the Silicon Valley during that huge time, websites were booming and the MP3 was new. And I think being thrown into the middle of the Silicon Valley during those amazing years was sort of the catalyst for me. Had I been and remained in Vancouver, I don't think so, just because technology wasn't, the thing to be cool or involved in. I was thrown in at a young age and exposed to like all kinds of new technology. I think that's where I get my whole adoption of new technology quickly. Sometimes I'm a little ahead of the curve with things that become mainstream later, but I've always sort of been an early adopter. I don't think I would have had that mentality had I stayed in Canada. No, I don't.
If you had to look back at things as someone who's a lot more experienced now, circa 2012, is there any advice that you'd give yourself, like to a young Natalie leaving Canada and going over to the US?
Wow, so much advice. I think at any age, when you're a teenager, when you're young, you don't necessarily believe in yourself, or you think you only have a certain limited amount of time to make things happen. I was very anxious back then. I probably jumped on opportunities that I probably should have sat back and analyzed. I maybe would have told myself to be a little bit more critical of the people that I went into business with early on. I mean, I got very lucky by meeting Jeremy, but that was after a lot of drama and a lot of what was to me then real heartbreak. I mean, you have the world that seems to be handed to you on a platter and then viciously sort of ripped away, which is how I felt about some things that happened with my early record label dealings. But I think just being careful of who you trust, and I think I would have told myself to be a bit more patient. I was rather impatient. Not that I made the wrong decisions, because I believe that we do everything for a reason, and we're put in a path for a reason. But I think I would have told myself to be more patient, to sort of chill out a bit more, and to be a bit more critical of the people who I aligned to myself with in those early days.
How do you compare the early days for you getting into music compared to early days someone getting into music now, 2012?
Wow. I think there's pros and cons. I think it's amazing that, like back in the day, I mean, it literally used to cost me $4,000 to produce one song. This was in the mid-'90s. We still were on 2-inch tape. We went to ADAT tape. There was, D88 tape, and we had different tapes, but it was still really, really expensive to go into the studio. Finding a producer, production fees were very high. So I think now the costs definitely are lower. We have access to technology that makes it easier to facilitate the creation of music, easily to distribute the music. But the problem now is there's just so many people who think that they're a rapper or a singer or a songwriter, so there's so much clutter. I mean, I remember back in the earlier days, if you were good and you had talent, those were the people who would go and spend the money on creating music. Not to say that there's, now I think there's just so many people who think that they can do it, who are out there, so it clutters things. Factored in with if you're rich and you have little talent, but you have the opportunity to publicize yourself, it does really, I find it frustrating, and I think that anyone starting out could find it frustrating. Maybe there's just too much opportunity. Maybe it's too easy now. I think a sort of a happy medium would be nice, where there's a bit of gatekeeping so that there is actually talented people in the pool, but with, it did cost a lot of money. I remember spending everything I had making songs. My first album, I think even indie still cost like $60,000 to produce. It was really expensive. You'd have to go to the big studio and mix down and hire an engineer, and you've got all these people. Now it costs, it still costs money to make a good quality recording. And then maybe that's the other thing that's confused now. I mean, everyone can do it, but not necessarily the best quality as far as sound quality production. That's always something I've been a stickler for. So I ended up, reinvesting my money and the money that Jeremy and I have made. We built our own studio, but I think the biggest pros is obviously the ability to do it for much less. The cons is just that it's way overcrowded, and perhaps some people are in the business who maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know. I'm not one to judge who should be and who shouldn't be, but as far as talent goes, it's become more subjective, I think.
So back in 2000, when you've released your first album, what was it like the very first time you held the finished product in your hand?
I actually cried, because let me tell you, getting to that day, I went through a horrific lawsuit. to even, I actually had recorded the whole album with the company I had done the independent deal with, and we went through a pretty severe lawsuit to actually get the control of the masters back. I had to end up re-recording. I had to spend a lot of my own money to actually go and re-record the whole thing. It was a moment of joy and relief because finally this little disc was in my hands. I mean, it took so many years. I mean, just the physical writing and production ended up taking, I think, 2 or 3 years, but just even getting to the point of being able to do a record, it was it was 3 or 4 years before that I had started even wanting to do that. So it was a really great feeling to finally have that in my hands. Little did I know at the time, having a shiny disc in your hands doesn't really mean a whole lot because you have to market it, but that was the second phase, and much learning through that, because at that point I really thought, oh, you're talented, you put a record out, someone will catch on, you'll get signed or upstreamed, and hurrah, you've made it. But now many years later, 12 years later, I realized that that's not really the case. But taking that moment for what it was a pretty awesome moment for both Jeremy and myself, because we both, put everything we had and everything we were into that record at that time.
So how does that feeling compare now to your latest album, when you held it for the first time?
Yeah. I mean, it's a different feeling, obviously. The first time you do anything has its own sort of feeling to it. This one was particularly interesting just because I completely did a different thing for it with doing the vlogs when we were writing the songs and sharing the babies sort of as they were being produced. That was really quite nerve-wracking for me. Even being on video was new. I was quite shy of doing video previous to having done my vlog series. And this one was a good feeling to get it out because there was, we had really tried this time to experiment with the sound a little bit more, and even the way we produced the music, which was a different sort of take on it for us. And it was the most rewriting that we've ever done for an album, because we picked a theme, and I had to make sure that each song didn't, repeat something that had already been said, or, trying to be as diverse in creating that theme, each of the songs that went into that theme. I mean, we wrote like over 40 songs for it, and many of the ones that ended up being on the album we rewrote lyrically, because I was really very cautious about the lyrics this time. I mean, I'm always cautious about lyrics, but even more so this time. So it was quite actually a relief to release this one. And weirdly enough, and I remember Jeremy kept questioning why I was feeling this way, this was actually the most nervous album for me to release in terms of putting it out. And I don't know why, because I got good feedback from the songs, but I wasn't sure how people would feel about the whole or the change in sound direction. So I was really, really happy when it came out and people were like, wow, I really was relieved, I guess would be the word, when this one came out, to see the response to it as a whole project.
So tell us about the theme, the concept behind the album.
So basically, the whole concept came from the concept of something that all of us have experienced in our life, which is relationships, dealing with relationships, all kinds of different relationships. The title, The Relationship Odyssey, came from the Space Odyssey, but instead of going out into space, we're dealing with the topic of relationships, which is like its own galaxy in itself, really, when you think about it. And what I tried to do, what Jeremy and I tried to do, was to create a sonic palette that incorporated, I come from a sort of a traditional R&B kind of radio R&B background, but we wanted to incorporate a little bit more electro sound into it and sort of a jazzy element, so mixing sort of a few different sound palettes together, and then for the topics to just cover things that we thought people could really relate to. I wanted there to be a song for everybody on this project that I thought that they could relate to. In a lot of past albums, I've basically taken personal experience or first-hand stories, to relate in my songs. And this time it was not only that, some personal, some other people things, but just a little bit more of an imagination, or making the stories a bit maybe bigger than they were, and then putting them into song format.
So talk me through the process for this album. When did the concept come about, and how long did it take to go through the various stages?
Oh gosh, I don't even know when the concept was hatched. I mean, I have about 20 album concepts. I always write them down because I like that idea of writing sort of album concepts down. I think maybe we we had talked about it. We released the previous album, Random Thoughts, I think it was 2009, and I believe it was at the end of 2009 or early 2010 when we were like, let's think about doing an actual concept album. We've never done a concept album before. So we've talked about it, and then it was, I think, around March. I can't remember exactly which month it was now because it seems like it was a long time ago, but I had wanted to do a 90-day challenge because for me, I take years and years to make my albums just because I'm busy doing song licensing and stuff like that, and I'm busy with doing other things, and I wanted to do a solo album, but I wanted to challenge myself with the turnaround time for the writing. So it started off with the 90-day challenge. Most of the material was written within the 90 days, but then, so basically what happened was we did the 90-day challenge, and I invited everyone to do it with me. I started the website natfriends.com, had everyone come in, and everyone focused on a challenge, something that they wanted to accomplish in 90 days. So we all did that together, and that was really fun, and that's how the vlog started. And I basically started... What I would do is literally go with Jeremy, we'd go into the writing room, and we would go ahead and we would just basically flesh out the basics for a song, and then what you guys heard in the beginning of those videos that we did was that song that we did that week, and you literally heard my first or second vocal take at doing that song. I mean, it just was literally, into the microphone and off into the video. So we basically did that, and then what happened was I was just going to do a digital release for it. I really wasn't going to do a big fancy release for it. And then crowdfunding actually started to come to the forefront, and I had heard about it, and we thought, okay, well, it would be really amazing to do a documentary, basically a live show, because one thing I found with being an online artist in terms of promoting myself online is that you get a very global audience. So it's difficult to tour because obviously I'm not able to tour every country in the whole world.
Yeah, I want to see you, in Australia.
But I'm not able to do that. So I had wanted to put together a video, a basically one night live video in Toronto that would be taped and whatnot. And to do that, we needed to raise $15,000 for that and $5,000 to do a physical production of the album. So I went ahead and I did that, and I think it was August to October was the fundraising period. And unfortunately, we didn't meet our goal. But I had a lofty idea at that time that I would fund the rest of the $15,000 myself, and made inroads to doing that. But at the end of the day, it dragged on for months. We were looking at some different ways to do that and to talk with people. And unfortunately, one of the big pieces of the puzzle fell through, which then made me reevaluate, me putting in $15,000. If there wasn't enough, interest in raising the funds in the beginning, did I really want to put in $15,000 at this point for that kind of thing? And after a lot of evaluation, I said no. And I'll be honest, I was kind of disappointed that it didn't happen. I had hoped that it would happen, but these things happen, and that's life. And then this brings us to probably springish 2011. And unfortunately, we sat down, we listened to all the sides that we had done, and I didn't feel like, both of us just didn't feel like there was a thread connecting everything. And I didn't feel comfortable at that time releasing the project, so we went back into sessions and we wrote a lot more stuff. And then finally, we actually released the album first to everyone who funded the physical album project in the fall of 2011, and then the actual there was actually a 15-song version that went out to everyone who funded, and then the 13-song version came out on January 17th, 2012. So it was a long process, not really long in terms of my personal history with releasing albums. I mean, it was like 6 or 7 years in between Let the Candle Burn and Random Thoughts. I mean, I did a Christmas album in between, but so it was like a year and a bit, 2 years almost, I guess, the whole process to final release date to the public.
So I know this is like selecting children for those who have children. If you had to name one song off the album that's your favourite, what would it be?
I think I would have to pick one that's right now my favorite, and I think the song "What Am I Doing Here" is one of my my favorite right now, just because I think, the world always goes through changes. People are always changing and thinking, but I think that, this is sort of a theme for me, and I think a theme for a lot of people is like, what the heck am I doing here? Why am I on this planet, And I love that I wrote it. It was pretty, actually, it was a very, that song flowed out of us really quite easily, and I'm glad that it did. I don't even know if I did more than 3 takes for it. It just kind of came. I don't even remember, but I don't know. I just think it resonates with a lot of people. It resonates with me. It's like, you wake up every morning and, you're wondering, what's my purpose? What am I here to do? I don't want to waste the space that I've been given. I don't want to waste the life that I've been given. But I want to know, what's my calling and my purpose. And it was interesting because through the album process, I had been talking to one of my fans on Twitter, and she had actually gone to Australia, of all places. She went to Australia for 6 months, and she blogged her whole journey. And it was just interesting because I had written the song sort of around the time she was doing that, and we had many conversations about it. And it was kind of neat when she got her copy. She had funded the album, and she was like, "Oh, that's like the first song that I went and listened to." And I've gotten a lot of good feedback, so I'm hoping that it's a catalyst for people to think about stuff. I think music does that. Music is the way that people can sort of solidify their thoughts or emotions on things if they can't necessarily articulate them verbally. So I like to be able to provide that outlet, for people.
So, when it comes to singing and songwriting, what inspires you?
I mean, vague as it sounds, life really inspires me. I think, as an artist, everything out there that's a stimulus for me serves for inspiration. Every experience I have, I'm a really big people watcher. I have that terrible habit of listening to other people's conversations when I'm out at a restaurant or whatever, and I don't know, I think just observing people, observing things. I also love nature very much. I love to just go sit somewhere where there's birds chirping, and I know that sounds pretty cheesy, but I don't know, just all those kinds of things inspire me. I love to think about what makes someone or something tick, so a lot of those things end up being little jotted. I mean, I have books full of notes, and which has now transitioned to my smartphone and my computer, where I just type anything that comes to mind, and it basically becomes a seedling for a song. I mean, I was tweeting the other day, I went to renew my passport, and then I had a meeting afterwards, and I was sitting in this office, and, just the chatter around you. I mean, there's so many things that are just, wow, that's interesting, what a concept, It comes from everywhere. So watch out if you ever meet me.
This is the famous ERK FM question. You might have heard it before. Just imagine that it's 3 o'clock in the morning, assume that you're asleep, and you come up with a really good idea. What do you do? What does Natalie Brown do?
Well, Natalie Brown has a pad and a pen generally within her sleeping vicinity. So what happens is that whether the light turns on or off, there is some scribbled line on some piece of paper which I have to then try to decipher the next day.
Has it ever worked?
Oh yeah, a lot of my I've tried to not. Actually, it's funny. As I get older, I notice that I sleep more soundly, which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing. Probably I'm just doing much more and I'm more tired. But I've literally woken up singing songs. That one's a bit harder. I used to have a tape recorder by my bed, but I don't anymore. I used to interrupt my sleep too much, and now my rule is, if it's a song, if it's a melody that comes in my sleep, if I can't remember it the next day, then it wasn't worth remembering. So if it's something that will stay with me and I can remember it the next day or it comes back to me, then I feel like it's that sort of gift seedling that I keep. But I will wake up in the middle of the night very often and just jot notes down and try to read it in the morning. I've sort of developed a system now where I can squint to sort of where I know where the lines are spaced, because I use a rule book, a notebook. So I give myself like a finger gap. I put my finger on top and I'll give myself a finger gap and right below my finger. Because usually I would just write and then I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be writing all over writing and I'd be like, what in the good Lord is that? But now I have a little system that I worked out.
Where's the strangest place that you've come up with a songwriting idea?
I don't know if it's strange, but I always get ideas in the shower. I don't know why. I don't know. And I've heard this before from other artists. I think it must be something about the soothing warmth of the water or something, but I don't know, the strangest place. I don't know, I've been in the doctor's office and gotten ideas. I get them everywhere, so I can't really think of the strangest. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if the doctor's office is weird. I just get them everywhere, so... but maybe the shower. I don't know. And I've been known to literally run out of the shower, sopping wet, to write something or sing it down, so that's really a hazard in our house.
The shower is really an inconvenient place to come up with an idea. I know of people who have come in traffic and have almost caused accidents to...
Oh, yeah. This is why I love my phone, because I just click the recorder and I just natter into the phone. So I love my phone. I love that. That's amazing. I mean, I remember back in the day, one would have to have one's pager or cell phone and the micro tape cassette recorder and everything in the car, and that was pretty dangerous. Yeah, I am glad it's all in one devices now.
So you've released the album. What's the reaction been like from the public, from your fans?
I mean, it's really been great. I mean, I'm not shocked. I mean, I don't know why I say that. I guess it's weird. Like, as an artist, you're always a bit, insecure maybe. Maybe some people aren't. I just am. I'm always insecure about releasing my songs out because they're my babies. I mean, I've spent so much time and everything invested into them, and if someone hates them, it's like, oh my god, it's awful. I mean, as I get older, obviously I'm getting better with rejection. You get rejected a lot in the music business, more than you get accepted, so that's one thing I've learned. But the reaction has been really great, and I mean, I love it. Like, people have given me comments like, it's like you were a fly on the wall in my life, or just this song helped me, or it's just so rewarding. And also what's really been awesome is I was just checking my first sales report, and I mean, full album downloads of this album have been the best of all of the albums. So that's really encouraging to know that as a cohesive unit, that decision to delay release was the smart one, because it turned out that people like the album as a whole, because I wanted it to be a journey, so that's really encouraging. And it's been great. We've gotten some radio play in the States and some small market stations, and lots of call-in requests, which is amazing, because I haven't even initiated a campaign for radio, really. I've been very low-key about the release of this album, so that it's taken its own sort of natural life like that, I think is very rewarding and very encouraging. Again, it just reiterates that the decision that Jeremy and I made to postpone the release till we were confident that we felt good about the unit as a whole. I think that made me feel better about that decision.
Is there a song that people download more than any others for those who just pick and choose a song?
You know what? I should have paid more attention. Jeremy was telling me he was looking at the numbers. I can't remember actually which one it was for this one. He was just looking at the report the other day. I don't know which song it is off the top of my head. I can't remember if it was Backstabber. Backstabber seems to resonate a lot with people right now. I don't know if it's just because of bad economic times and people are mad at everybody, but but it seems to be the song that a lot of people have reacted to generally.
Tell us a bit about Backstabber.
Well, Backstabber is basically, as the song title indicates, it's about somebody who's backstabbed you, and it's about basically someone who you thought was your friend, but they were, basically hiding in the shadows like a ghost, basically waiting to stab you in the back. And it was an interesting concept because, the musical part of the creation of the song, it doesn't have a typical Natalie Brown chorus, which is 5,000 background harmonies or whatever, and it's quite short. But the concept of the song is just, I think, one that everyone pretty much has gone through as they've gotten older, and it's basically betrayal, and it seems to really resonate with people. I do think we're in an interesting time. Obviously, the world is going through some stuff right now, and the economy and stuff like that, so I'm just wondering if that's why people kind of have picked up on that one, that particular song, but who knows, it just seems to be really resonating with people. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Where were you when I needed you the most? Hiding there in the shadows like a ghost, just pretending you couldn't hear me cry.
backstabber. Look back, I see a traitor who's a tough talker too, and I don't trust you. Backstabber, you backstabber. Oh, spread your lies when it's over. Backstabber, you backstabber. Don't look out for no other. Backstabber. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. You backstabber, you backstabber, you backstabber, you backstabber, you backstabber, you backstabber, you.
What's coming up for you? You've released the album. What's coming
Yeah.
up?
Well, right now I'm actually back in sessions doing film and TV writing, and I will be doing that for the next few months. I'm working on a project that may come out around Christmas time. We're not sure yet what the deal is with that, so I don't want to say too much. But basically, we decided to do a low-key release for this one. I would like to spend some time this year getting a new band together up here in Canada, doing some shows and getting my live show back up. I mean, I literally haven't toured properly since Let the Candle Burn, just because times have changed. Everything's changed in the business, and touring as an indie pop, R&B act I find it more difficult because you don't really fit in anywhere. A lot of rock bands get booked for gigs and whatnot. So I really wanted to spend this time, building up the fan base more. People want me to tour, and I would love to. I mean, I feel bad when I'm like, we'll see. But it's very expensive to tour. And especially since moving back to Canada, you got to deal with visas and, all the stateside stuff if it is a U.S. tour. But I am very positive in that I want to do all that stuff. I just have to set the right foundation for it, which is what I'm trying to do in the next year or so. And hopefully with the next album, maybe get out there and actually do a proper tour. So for right now, I'm going to be focusing at home, putting together a new band, getting my live show created, something that's, compelling, obviously, and then grow it. I'm just, I'm for the first time in my life, I'm going to be a hometown artist. My whole career has been spent traveling. I mean, I've lived in numerous states. I've been all over Canada, the UK. I've never settled. And this is my first time where I've actually been in one spot for a little while. And I really feel like now I need to sort of plant myself and, be in my pond for a bit, and then see what happens from there. You do have to be more cautious now just because everything does cost money, and you have to think of your ROI, which is your return on investment. And I know that sounds so dry and businessy, but, being that we run our own label and we fund everything, you do have to be a bit more cautious. Unfortunately now I'm a grown-up, so I have to be a little bit more responsible financially and think about that and think about the future. So while I have every hope and desire, and I'm making efforts and plans to, I do want to tour, I do have to be careful and wise with how I go about doing it. So that's really my next big thing that I want to do. And continue to do licensing. I've been doing that for several years now. It's really the bread and butter money for myself as an artist. Rock bands can go out there and tour and sell merch and do all that kind of stuff. It's a little more difficult or trickier for an artist such as myself. And now that I'm sort of being classified more as an adult contemporary, I'm having to make sure that licensing income is steady. So
how can we contact you? How can we chat with you on the social networks and your website?
Yeah, so basically the easiest thing to do is to go to natalie-brown.com. All of my social network links are there. I am on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, G+, every Flickr, every social network that I think you can think of, even Pinterest. You can follow all the crazy things that I pin. basically, yeah, that's the best place to find me. All of my music is there. Every album that I've done is listed there, and you can listen to samples from the albums. The music is available at Amazon and iTunes. You can buy CDs directly from me. You cut out the middleman, and you can buy it right from my website. And everything, all the details are there. I've got lots of stuff archived from previous releases, so there's lots of neat stuff to look at. And then, of course, I am a Twitter junkie, so if
Yes,
you
you
like
are.
to follow my inane tweets, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Natalie_Brown.
Awesome, Natalie. It's been a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again sometime. It's been a lot of fun.
Definitely. Great, awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate your support over these many years, and I'm glad that we met. Thank goodness for podcasts. They're just amazing, so I wish you all the best with your podcast, and thank you for shining a light on independent artists. We appreciate it. I don't think you guys know how much we appreciate you, but we really do.
No worries. It's been a lot of fun, and it will continue to be a lot of fun. This has been episode 9 of ERK FM Extra. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you have more of an insight about a lot of things, including how things have changed over the years. Natalie Brown, it's been awesome.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
You too.
All right, bye.
Life's a journey we should take. Lots of memories we'll make. Pack your bags, I